Well, hello everyone. All right. So, those of you that have been following along know that Prima sent me actually two huge boxes of their art philosophy line because I was really interested in starting to play with watercolor. I had been kind of scared, for lack of a better word, of watercolor and kind of refuted using it. But I really wanted to use more water-based media and really figure out how to work it into my mixed media practice. So I don't really want to become a watercolor artist, but I really want to incorporate that media into mixing it up with my acrylic and my pencils and all that other kind of collage and stuff like that. So these are the art philosophy concentrated watercolors. These come with a dropper. Those of you that have played with some India ink with me know that I love anything that comes in a dropper. But I have not played with these. Like, I've gotten them, I put them in a bin, and then I haven't taken them out. So the first thing I like to do is to make like a swatch or a sample and just get my hands into them, or in this case, brush into them, just so I can see, number one, what kind of colors are these? How potent are they? Are they thick? Are they thin? Uh, because a lot of times packaging doesn't necessarily reflect the color. It's like a general suggestion of this is orange, but it doesn't necessarily show you how bold of an orange and stuff like that. So I'm just basically using, this is my Stillman and Burn art journal. I love this one. It's a tiny little guy. It's like 3.5 by 5.5. And I just made some grid marks. Those of you that have been following along with my color studies, this is not going to be new. But I basically just put each of the colors in one of these spots in Roy G. Biv order, because that's the only way to process life is in Roy G. Biv order. And I'm just kind of playing around with here. And I thought it might be helpful for those of you that are interested in playing around with this watercolor media, just to see what colors they really are. And that's why I've got the bottles here so you can see the names, and then I'll go back and I'll write the names on there and stuff. But I wanted you to be able to see them. If I'm going to go and experiment and see the colors, I might as well share that. The other thing is I've kind of been challenged. I'm going to be teaching for Prima in their art venture event in 2022. And so they sent me all these and they're like, could you do some watercolor media? And of course I said yes, but I hadn't actually played with it. But I'm so glad I did, because I really love what I've been experimenting with. And maybe later on, maybe next month or when I start to do teasers for the class, I can share some of that. And I basically chose 3 colors based off of what I had done here so I can see the colors, and started working a mixed media background, or at this point a watercolor background, and then worked my mixed media on it. So this really gives me a lot of information, and I know this is kind of a fun therapeutic thing to do as well. I know a lot of you out there really love to make swatches because it's just so relaxing. So that's what we've got here. And a little fun insider information, I actually chose for my project with Art Venture to go with Candy, which is that first swatch there, Squash, which is that yellow swatch, and then that Emerald, which clearly is not green. It's a beautiful blue, turquoise, if you will. And I figured that was kind of like, the primary colors. I've got kind of a pink, a yellow, and a blue. Okay, they're variations of the primary colors, but it was a great way to start because I was able to mix greens and purples and things like that just by using those 3 colors. So that's what I also feel like is really fun. And I feel like by putting these colors in this little swatch book here, it gives me a little bit more information when I'm choosing color palettes, because I don't want this to just be the only thing I do. And just like I go to pick paint colors in acrylic paint, the same thing should apply to watercolor or pastel or any kind of media that you're working with. You want to kind of keep those colorways in kind of harmony with what you're doing. And when I was choosing the acrylic colors, I chose white to pick up and to blend into. So it was just really kind of a fun way to marry, because the white acrylic paint activated some of the watercolor and tinted the paint, and it was just kind of a really cool process, I think. So, anyway, like I said, I just wanted to share this with you because I find it really valuable just to know what the color looks like before I buy it. And a lot of times on a computer screen, when you just see the bottle of paint, like on Amazon or something like that, you don't get all the information you might need. And here's another really good example. There's a lot of blues, and I think these blues kind of look very different in comparison to the packaging color. And that gives you a lot of information. And I'm really bad. I'm like the worst person at figuring out if a color is cool or warm. Does this yellow a warm or a cool yellow? I'm totally lost at that. But I can tell you that I can kind of equate these to acrylic paint colors, and it makes me understand them better. For example, I think that first blue there is kind of like a cobalt blue, and the second blue there is kind of like a manganese, and the third blue there is kind of like a Payne's gray. So I can kind of work those together in my knowledge, and I just think that everybody should do that. If and the other cool tidbit is, and I forget who told me this, but it was years ago that somebody said, like, psychologically speaking, if you never use the product, like for example, if I just never picked up this purple because purple's not my favorite color, and I just had it, and one day I needed a purple, I'm not going to be able to pull from my resources and remember I've got a purple concentrated watercolor because I've never put hands on it. Same thing for like stamps. If you've never stamped a stamp, even though you have it, you don't kind of go to it to use it. Even though when you're cleaning and organizing your stamps, you'll be like, oh, I should use this. But if you've never actually stamped it, you won't remember you have it. So just by putting these swatches together, hopefully, no promises, hopefully this puts it into my repertoire of tricks, and I call it that file cabinet in your mind. And then you can remember, oh, I have a purple, a brown, a pink, a blue watercolor that might work for this, instead of maybe going to a palette or a tube or something like that. That dropper changes the application but also has this concentrated, and that's the other thing that I think is really important to point out here, is the vibrancy of these concentrated watercolors is strikingly different than a palette. And I love that because, more color, the better. So thanks for being here. Let me share this with you, and there'll be more to come. So stay tuned.